Risk management has two central roles: reducing uncertainty about identified risks and determining appropriate responses for when risk events do occur. Developing appropriate responses to identified risks is the most important way to manage and control risk in a project. If the risk that you've identified doesn't occur, great, but if it does occur and you've prepared for it, then you implement the response. You then follow up by asking how effective your planned response was at controlling the damage caused by the risk. Or if the risk was positive and posed an opportunity, was the response effective at maximizing the benefit to the project? There are 4 main strategies for managing negative risks, also known as threats. You can avoid the risk altogether. Sometimes risks are so costly or unpredictable that they shouldn't be incurred at any cost. In this case, they must be avoided. In other words, planned risk responses must prevent the risk from affecting a project at all. Let's say you find out that one of your prospective vendors is experiencing financial issues. These issues may impact their ability to pay their employees, which could create a variety of issues for your project. You may decide to forego this vendor to avoid that risk. Another strategy is to transfer risk. This involves shifting some or all of the negative risk to a third party. This doesn't remove the risk, it simply transfers responsibility for it to a party outside of the project. This strategy of transferring risk is most often used to manage financial risk. Insurance or guarantees and warranties from suppliers are examples of transferring risk. Another strategy for responding to negative risk is to mitigate the risk. This involves reducing the probability that they'll occur and the impact that they'll have, if they do, to acceptable levels. Building redundancy into a system is an example of a way to mitigate the risk of system failures. A 4th strategy for approaching negative risks is simply to accept the risk and their possible consequences. Acceptance is an appropriate strategy when a risk is small, unavoidable, unknown, and can't be transferred, shared, or mitigated. In this case, a project team may simply hope for the best and plan to respond appropriately to any consequences or benefits that arise. In projects, it's not only negative risks or threats that require planned responses. It can be just as important to plan how to respond to positive risks or opportunities. There are 4 main types of strategies for responding to positive risks. To exploit a positive risk is to make the most of an opportunity by eliminating uncertainty in the project to ensure that it happens. This may involve changing a project's objectives, schedule, or budget. The project manager might achieve this by reducing the time period to complete a project by bringing in more qualified resources or by improving in the level of quality that was originally planned. Exploiting an opportunity can be expensive in terms of costs, time, and other resources, so it's important to assess the benefits of exploiting an opportunity in relation to the expense of obtaining it. Sometimes it can make more sense to share a risk. This involves joining with a third party to increase the chance of securing benefits and agreeing to share the rewards. Perhaps you want to enter a new market, but your company is not experienced with the logistics of doing so. You can share the risk of entering the new market with a company who is experienced in this area. The possible reward of going it alone would likely be larger, but the risk of failing is much lower this way. Another risk response strategy is to enhance an opportunity. This involves taking steps to increase the likelihood or positive impact of the opportunity on the project. For example, a casino may take active steps to win the approval of nearby residents by donating funds for local projects. This may enhance support for the casino and in turn increase the profits derived from local residents, who may become regular casino visitors. A final strategy for responding to positive risks is acceptance. Especially in the case of opportunity, it may be the best plan of action simply to accept the risk. don't take any action, and move on with the project. There are two categories that all risks fall into. Known unknowns, which are risks that you can predict and therefore mitigate against. Known unknowns are risks that you can identify early in the project based on events that have occurred in similar past projects. Or they can simply be common sense predictions about what might possibly go wrong. Then there are unknown unknowns, which are the unforeseen events that no one identified as possible risks before they happened. A fire that destroys a production facility and a natural disaster such as an earthquake are unknown unknowns that you can't predict. Other kinds of risks that are difficult to predict include communication breakdowns, power failures, and loss of data from a virus on your network that your security measures couldn't detect. A risk that has occurred is known as an issue. Once you experience an issue, you will implement the appropriate risk response, document the issue in an issue log, and regularly reevaluate risks to document any new risks. Note whether the risk responses are effective and ensure that the project team is following risk management procedures.